Yesterday's clips on the screen say everything. I had given an economics MCQ test from the batch I bought from Ada 24/7, and honestly, the test did not go the way I had imagined it would. I scored 70 out of 100, and I got 6 questions wrong out of 25. On paper, that score looks average, but emotionally, it hit me much harder than I expected. It humbled me in a very real way. I feel disappointed in myself because I knew I had put in effort, and still the result did not reflect what I wanted. That heaviness stayed with me for the entire day. Instead of letting that feeling turn into self doubt, I decided to convert it into discipline. So the next morning, I woke up at 7 a.m. with a very clear intention. I decided that I would complete the entire Part B syllabus of economics in one single day, no matter how difficult it felt. To make it more challenging and more meaningful, I also set a 12-hour study challenge for myself because sometimes you need to challenge your limits to rediscover your confidence. I began my day with economics lecture and studied continuously for 1 hour and 50 minutes. After that, I took a short breakfast break. Then I sat down again with economics, this time focusing completely on revision. As I revised, the concept that felt confusing in the test slowly started becoming clear. It felt strange but reassuring to realize that one bad test can shake you, but it can also teach you exactly what you need to fix. That's why tests are very, very important. And today is all about showing up for myself after a setback and continuing my CUET journey with honesty and consistency. My first session was completely dedicated to macroeconomics. I began with the meaning of macroeconomics and then moved on the circular flow of income because that chapter set the base for all the concepts that follow. After that, I studied the concept and aggregate related to national income, and finally I completed the measurement of national income. Altogether, this lecture session was originally around 5 hours and 43 minutes long, which honestly sounds terrifying when you hear it. I watched the lecture at 2x speed, but I made sure I paused whenever something felt confusing. And because of that, I was able to complete this entire session in just about 3 hours. It was intense but also very satisfying to see real progress. I finally wrapped up the first session at around 10 p.m., feeling little tired but proud that I did not give up halfway. This session set the base for rest of my 12-hour study challenge and gave me a small confidence boost after yesterday's disappointing test. After completing such a long economic session, I could feel my mind slowly getting exhausted because studying the same subject for hours can make anyone feel dull and mentally saturated. So instead of forcing productivity, I decided to switch subject and give my brain a reset. I moved to English for next 2 hours. In the first hour, I watched lectures from the Manjal series where I covered some important topics that were completely new to me and which I had not studied before. It actually felt refreshing. After finishing the English lectures, I shifted my focus to vocabulary because vocabulary is extremely important from CUET point of view and cannot be ignored. After that, I switched to general awareness because no matter how much we try to ignore it, current affairs always find a way to surprise us in CUET. I started with one daily current affairs video which was around 40 minutes long, and I watched it at 2x to save time while still noting down the important points. Once that was done, I moved straight to revising the entire November month current affairs through a one short revision lecture that was about 1 hour 30 minutes long. Revising full month current affairs are extremely important. Daily current affairs help you stay updated, and monthly revision makes sure you do not forget what you studied earlier. And for a CUET aspirant point of view, this combination is non-negotiable. By around 1 p.m., I had already completed nearly 6 hours of study, so I finally took a break to rest, recharge, and get ready for the next study session. After that break, I started my next study session at around 4 p.m. The weather was calm, the sky looked beautiful, and for a moment, everything felt quiet and balanced. With that peaceful view, I sat down again with my books and notes. I went back to economics because consistency matters more than comfort on days like this. Since I had already completed 4 chapters in the first session, I moved ahead with the next 3 chapters in this session. Starting again was not easy, but the calm evening atmosphere made the study feel a little lighter. It felt like a fresh start within the same day, and I reminded myself that progress does not always have to feel rushed to be real. In this evening session, I focused on completing 3 important chapters of macroeconomics, and honestly, this part of the syllabus felt surprisingly engaging. The first chapter I covered was Money, its meaning, evolution, and function, which helped me finally connect theory with real life examples. After that, I moved on to commercial banks and credit creation, a chapter that usually feels intimidating but actually started making sense once I shot down and followed the logic properly. The third chapter in this session was central bank, its meaning and function, and by the end of it, the entire monetary system started feeling less confusing and more structured in my mind. What made this session enjoyable was the fact that it was not just about watching lectures and moving on. There were questions in between the lectures, which meant I was revising the chapter while also actively applying the concept. Solving question immediately after learning something feels like instant reality check, and surprisingly, that made studying a lot more fun. It felt like passive learning and more like actual preparing for CUET. The entire session lasted around 2 hours and 45 minutes, and by the end of it, all three chapters were fully completed and revised. I felt genuinely satisfied because this was the kind of study where understanding mattered more than the speed. Unfortunately, my iPad battery was almost drained, and my pencil had completely given up, which forced me to take a break even though I wanted to continue. I finally paused this session at around 5:45 pm, reminding myself that sometimes taking a break is not laziness, it is strategy, especially when you want to sustain long study hours. After that break, the environment itself felt like a pause button on life. The time was around 6:30 p.m. The weather was calm. The moon was glowing beautifully in the sky. For a few minutes, I just stood there, looked at the sky, and let my mind slow down. Because moments like this remind you that hard days can still be peaceful. I come back to my study table at around 7:30 p.m. and once again I opened my economics notes. This was the final and most challenging session of the day. In this session, I had to complete 5 chapters of economics. And these were not short or easy ones. I started with aggregate demand, aggregate supply, and related concept, then moved on to short run equilibrium output, followed by investment multiplier and its mechanism. After that, I studied the problem of deficient and excess demand, and finally, the measures to correct deficient and excess demand. Somewhere in between, the boredom started kicking in. So, I had some kurkure for survival because long study session demand emergency snacks. This session was long, intense, and honestly exhausting because the total lecture duration was around 5 hours and 44 minutes, which is almost 6 hours. I studied chapter by chapter, one after another, trying not to rush even though my energy was slowly dropping. As the hour passed, my back pain became very real and productivity shifted from study table mode to study from bed mode because adapting is better than quitting. Even then, I did not stop sitting on my bed. I continued watching lectures and revising concept, reminding myself why I started this challenge in the first place. By the end of this session, all 5 long chapters were finally completed, and with that, I successfully finished the entire Part B syllabus of economics. Exactly as I had promised myself in the morning. At 12 am, I officially completed my 12-hour study challenge. There were 3 chapters technically left, but since I had already covered them earlier, there was no need to repeat them. That moment felt unreal because the day that started with disappointment ended with discipline, consistency, and a quiet sense of victory. So that's it for today. See you in the next video. Till then, bye bye. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and like.